I stand on the shoulders of his greatness, as they do, as one day you will.
Except I am gonna fuck your shit up. How's that for great?
Mass Effect Andromeda is the fourth game in BioWare's RPG sci-fi series. Since their release, it certainly has received its fair share of criticism, and rightfully so. On launch, Andromeda was riddled with bugs and horrendous facial animations, and a whole slew of other issues. Since then, the developers of the game, BioWare Montreal, have been dissolved throughout EA, and support for the game has been relegated to just a few BioWare employees, and the whole series is rumored to be put on ice until the time comes for EA to bank on nostalgia and create a reboot. After playing through the game recently, I can certainly see why a lot of people didn't like Andromeda, especially fans of the original trilogy. Ryder, the main player character, is a lot more sarcastic and witty than Shepard ever was, and this applies to a lot of the writing. Where the original was a lot more serious and cracked only a few jokes here and there, Andromeda is filled with characters trying to be funny. Honestly, the tone isn't the issue I have with Andromeda's story. It reminds me a lot of Mass Effect 3's Citadel DLC and the humor that story had. Just this time the humor is spread out through the entire game. Unfortunately, unlike the Citadel DLC, a lot of humor isn't earned and falls flat. The biggest issue I have with Andromeda's story is the amount of uninteresting characters and world building the game has. With the squad mates, I can easily sum up most of them as knockoffs of squad mates from the original trilogy. Cora and Drac feel like less interesting versions of Ashley and Rex, respectively. Liam and Peebee aren't really fun characters to watch and be with. I don't care about Liam's concern with helping everyone, and I could care less about Peebee's past and her obsession with remnant tech. Jaal and Vetcher are the only two squad mates I'm actually interested in, simply because Jaal is a brand new alien to the series, and he brings his perspective on the Angara. Vetcher would be categorized as a knockoff of Garrus if it weren't for a relationship with Sid, a sibling character that pops up for more than just a mission, and a few key character traits that are different from Garrus. Andromeda goes for planets that only have one environment type that most sci-fi goes with nowadays, and doesn't do anything creative with these new planets. There are very few explorable planets in the game, and of those we have a desert planet, an ice planet, another desert planet, and a jungle planet, which is admittedly the most unique of the planets. Andromeda totes around how it's about exploration and discovery, yet none of the new areas in the game are places that couldn't be found in the original game's galaxy. I'm not interested to explore these planets because I've seen these environments hundreds of times before in other games. There are also only two new races in Andromeda, the Angarans and the Ket, and you would think that, okay, since there's only two new species, they'd be able to write them really well. But of course they don't, and they're actually some of the most boring aliens ever created. The Angarans and the Ket are extremely uninteresting species that only get a little bit interesting near the end of the game, but even that gets unresolved because of the amount of sequel baiting that goes into Andromeda. All over the game you see things that are sequel bait. Oh, look at this, a planet that will be totally different in a few years. The Quarian Ark is bringing more alien species, but it's lost now and you have to wait for something to happen, and so is still out there doing things. So many plot threads are left unanswered, and because it's unlikely we'll ever see a sequel to Andromeda, they're just now lazy plot threads that didn't go anywhere. The Mako returns as the main method of exploration. The Mako levels of Mass Effect 1 never really bothered me that much because the controls, while really weird, were extremely fun to use because the Mako just went everywhere and it was ridiculous. The Nomad in comparison is a much more neutered down version. It has decent controls and it's not a bad design, but it's just not fun to use. The only reasons why you'll ever need to use the Nomad in the first place are to either A, explore an area, B, have an easy way to get back to the ship, or C, listen to squad mates banter about things. Completing side quests in Andromeda is also a massive chore. Many of the side quests in Andromeda work like this. Talk to a random NPC, leave the planet, loading, click on the planet you want to go to, skip an animation, land on the planet, loading, sprint to a place you can spawn the Nomad, loading, get the Nomad, travel to 3 or more widely spaced areas on the map that merely involve going to a place and interacting with something, while also freezing in place because the game can't load things fast enough. Going on a scavenger hunt filled with loading screens isn't fun. It's just annoying padding that would have been better cut out of the game or just greatly downsized. Multiplayer in Andromeda is very similar to its Mass Effect 3 incarnation. 4 players equipped with various weapons and characters to take on 7 waves of enemies and objectives compared to Mass Effect 3's 11 waves. The shorter wave amount means multiplayer matches are much faster, and it's actually a big improvement from Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, because back then an average match took about 30 minutes to finish. Fans of the multiplayer from Mass Effect 3 should easily adapt to the new combat and rule changes to the multiplayer, but on its own the multiplayer really isn't anything special. Content drops for Mass Effect Andromeda have been very lackluster compared to Mass Effect 3's. whereas recently a Batarian was just added. By now, Geth had already been added to Mass Effect 3. Overall, Andromeda has a lackluster story, a lackluster cast of characters, lackluster side quests, and lackluster multiplayer. And despite all of this mediocrity, I still really enjoyed Mass Effect Andromeda. I like some of the lines Ryder had. I like the potential of the storylines they were going with the Engarns and the Ket. The game tried to expand on concepts introduced in the first Mass Effect game, and it had a lot of potential. If I could say one thing about Andromeda, it's that Andromeda is nothing but untapped potential. The game is certainly at the bottom of the list for the best Mass Effect games, but for fans of the series, it's worth the experience of the game for yourself and to form your own opinions.